Good morning and welcome to Monday Mornings with Margie. I know it seems like we've been on a hiatus, and we kind of have been, but we're back and we're ready to roll again. And I have an amazing guest on today, Stephanie Payne. And we're going to have a really interesting conversation today. And I'm going to let Stephanie start off by introducing herself and telling us a little bit about who she is.
Well, hi. Thank you, Margie. Hi, I'm Stephanie Payne. I live here in Omaha, Nebraska. I was raised in a military family. Unfortunately, they traveled the world, came here to Omaha, adopted me. I've been here for 47 years.
Wow.
When I was younger, my mom and I used to go downtown. We would see, like homeless people and stuff like that. And so I got in the mental health field because I asked a homeless man why he was living on the street watching TV. So I wanted to help people. I went to a local high school here. I graduated from Wayne State with my bachelor's, and I graduated from UNO here in Omaha with my master's of arts.
Wow. Great.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing currently. What is your job right now?
So I work at the Salvation Army here in Omaha in their community support. So my role is community support, mental health. So I go out in the community and I want to say I educate people who have mental illness, which is schizophrenia, depression. It could be drug addicts, alcoholics, recovering, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I help them be able to live independently in the community.
Okay.
People who have mental health, don't like to say that they have mental health issues because it causes a lot of problems within the community. People look at them different, don't think that they can hold a job. And a lot of my people can hold a job very well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just kind of help them with resources if they need any, which are slim to none, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I help them if they're homeless. I help them find housing, and I have other resources and other organizations that I go through as well to help them with getting housing, getting a job, or maybe getting on Social Security if they can't work.
Sure. So would you say more of the people you're working with are actually homeless, or are more of the people you're working with people you've gotten housing but you're continuing to work with, or is it like a mix of both?
It's a mix of both, but a majority that I work with now are people who have been housed.
Okay.
They might have only been housed for a couple weeks, maybe a month, or they're about to be housed, and they're coming from either a treatment facility or another program in our organization that had like 24/7 staff, to where they're not used to staying on their own. So I'm long-term. So they might have like a short-term community support worker who will help them for 90 days or so, and then they'll be referred to long-term.
Okay.
Which is me. And I generally work with people for, it could be a year, 2 years.
Wow.
Some are more, chronic than others, but generally about 1 or 2 years.
So what kind of housing or resources, because I know you were saying they're sort of scarce, which is a whole nother topic. But what are some of the resource options for people who are in that kind of situation? Let's say you came into Salvation Army because you had addiction issues and you were homeless. You come in, you end up, working recovery, and now they come to you. What are some of the options for someone like that?
Well, we have, like I said, different departments in Salvation Army, and they have like a housing department, and they help them. So they have resources, case managers that they work with one-on-one, that work with other landlords. The problem is, and I think it's a nationwide problem, to be honest, is the being able to afford housing. There's not a lot of housing. There's wait lists for 2 to 3 years, to get some support with housing.
Right.
Some people don't get a big enough Social Security check to even get an apartment. So the negative part about that is that sometimes they don't get to live exactly where they want to live
Yeah.
until they're able to save up and, be able to get a different apartment. So we have a great housing, department that does help getting people. We do have what we call here in Omaha, like Section 8
Yes.
housing. We have an organization, Region 6, that helps out with housing. In each county, there is like a housing department in each county to where they can help too, but they can only help so many people.
Sure. So I would assume, because out here I'm in Massachusetts, the Section 8 housing wait list is
long,
years.
2 years, 3 years, and that's unfortunate. I mean, I wish that I had some sort of, resolution for it, but, it's hard, working with people and they're living from friends to family. And if they get in a fight with their family, they have to go find somewhere else to live, or sometimes they'll go on the street, or sometimes, they'll fall back into getting into a neighborhood where they don't want to be.
Right.
And start all over again.
Right. Well, and I was thinking also, if they can't afford certain housing, they may end up in a neighborhood that would not be good for their recovery.
Absolutely. It happens more often than you can count.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems like part of helping with mental health and recovery sort of nationally is having more subsidized housing for people who can't afford the current housing market, so people can actually get on their feet again.
Absolutely. And, even for the people who are on their feet, like mental health, I feel is not being addressed a lot. I mean, it's out there. People suffer from a lot. There's a lot of suicide that we have had that can most definitely be, preventable, with the resources. And if, a lot of times it's a pride thing. I don't want people to know, that I can't afford housing. I don't want people to know this is, where I'm at in life. And there's nothing to be, there's nothing to be ashamed of, just ask for help. But there's so many stereotypes about mental health and, they do this or they do bad things. And, I'm going to tell you what, people who have mental health are more likely to get help. And then you have just, honestly, Margie, you just have bad people. And so I wish that there was another way that we can get, more housing to help people so we don't have a big homeless population. Sure, we have shelters and they have, case management, over there, and they have people who will help them. I mean, there's a lot of people are very passionate when they're in the mental health field.
Yeah.
Wish we had more resources,
And I would assume that you see people from all kinds of backgrounds. So it's not what people sort of want to think it is.
Right.
It's not sort of the stereotypes people have in their mind.
Nope. It could be, to be honest, it could be a senator. It could be a doctor. It could be a nurse. It could be, there's a lot of people who are on their feet, millionaire, you know what I'm saying? That suffer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say, like, in thinking about your many years of experience working in mental health and doing the work that you do, which is really I call it the trenches, like you are in the trenches. And I was in sort of the trenches for many years and I learned a lot and it's hard work. What would you say some of the key things that you've learned, what in doing the work you've done, maybe things that you thought something differently about that you now think differently about now? What have you learned in doing this work?
I have learned that people who have a mental illness are so smart. And they can do great things. Excuse me. It's just people don't think that of course, with the stereotypes. I've learned that, you know, a lot of people, they want help. They don't want to feel this way. Um, you know, I've learned that they're great people. They're good, caring, giving people who have unfortunately been brought up abused.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so you have two types of people. Either they're going to carry on that abuse tradition or they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so a majority of the people that I have worked with, they don't want to.
Right.
They don't want, you know, they don't want to abuse anybody, or they don't want to be addicts, you know, but they are just so hurt and they don't know how to communicate because there has never been anybody who would sit there and listen. I have had so many of my people sit down and tell me, wow, you know, you really sit down and listen.
Mm.
And I told them, to be honest, I can relate with some of that.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate with depression. I can relate with feeling alone and abandoned and, you know, stuff like that. So I think it's easier. And I think that's why I have such a huge passion
Mm-hmm.
in mental, you know, health, is because I understand, you know, I get it. You know, it's lonely. You know, I have a I have a great personality, I feel, but I can also be in a room with a crowd of people and having the best time, but I still have felt alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I can understand.
Yeah.
You know, but I've learned so much. I've learned, you know, like they want to go to college, you know, live in a big house. They have big dreams. They want to work, you know, but as soon as somebody finds out, oh, you have a mental illness, it just goes down the tubes. And what's the sad part is that people are missing out on meeting a lot of great people.
Yeah.
So I don't think a lot of people understand it, you know, like, and I think I can say, you know, for here in Omaha and probably other places, you know, you have these police officers who might not understand, you know, like, are these people are they trying to hurt me?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there something going on?
Sure.
And so the one thing that I really got a lot out of, and I believe my friend Angie has told you that I worked a lot with the CIT training here in Omaha.
Yes.
Which is great. The crisis intervention training, it's with police officers, probation officers, even the Humane Society. You know, a lot of people who have to, you know, deal with mental illness. And I got the opportunity to be an actor. So I got to act like I was depressed. I got to act like I had schizophrenia, and they would come in and you have a lot of police officers here who really are compassionate, you know. I think that helps too, is, you know, people with authority, if they could just, you know, understand mental illness more, I think that's a start right there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. What were some of the things you did, like what in the training? So
I would
like all in a room together, getting the same training and interacting.
So they go Monday through Friday. So Monday through Thursday morning, they have classroom training. And then us actors come in Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon. And we act out different scenarios. You know, there's like a war veteran, you know, who is outside or homeless. We also did a artistic, you know, schizophrenic who played music loud and, you know, was manic. And we also I did a depression scene with, actually, she was my supervisor at the time. We did a depression scene and we were on the news here in Omaha. But of course I had a plastic knife and I was going to cut myself. And then I had all my pills on the table. Well, what we were trying to get across is when the police officers came and I had a knife, not for them to focus on the knife, but focus what is going on around me.
Yes.
My house is a mess. I've got pills on the table. Like, what really is going on? And that's what got them, you know, to help. You know, we had people who, we had a scenario of people who thought they were working for the FBI. Things were going on in the apartment. So they were outside all day, all night, you know, because they were working for FBI. And, you know, so basically the training is, they're in several different rooms and you go, you know, and you get different people coming in.
Wow.
And I personally think it's beneficial because they're not focusing on why is somebody sitting outside of the quick shop, speaking the word from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It's look at your surroundings, what's happening with that person, and I think that a lot of people have gotten a lot out of that.
Mm-hmm.
People with mental illness do not like police officers because of the way they have been treated. And, they would say, I'm not trying to hurt you. Like I'm hurting. I need help.
Yeah.
But, police officers, they're trained, they've got to protect themselves.
Sure.
And currently I actually work with a mental health responder who is absolutely wonderful. She works for the Omaha Police Department and we work really well together. She responds to the 911 calls that come that really not necessarily are 911 calls, but it does take for somebody to come over there and talk them down, if you will.
Sure.
So
de-escalate the situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like that what you're doing and have done and what's happening in Omaha, and I'm sure it's happening in other places too, but it almost seems like it needs to become like the global way that nationally we are training police officers and bringing in mental health people into police stations, working hand in hand with police officers, not only on the training end, which is absolutely key, but also in the intervention and de-escalation end.
If you were to ask me, I think that a lot of organizations need to have some sort of mental health, something there to help people, even not in the hospitals or the police station, but, in the post offices, like maybe sometimes, and this might sound way out there, but in daycares or in doctor's offices and stuff like that. If you put one person, who knows about mental health, people have problems. We don't know what's going on in people's lives. And so any given day, somebody could walk in and even drop off their child at a daycare and they could be suffering that day of something. And if you had someone that they could sit down and talk to, instead of somebody coming out and saying, oh, Mrs. Jones is, going crazy again, you don't know what Mrs. Jones is really going through. So I'm hoping this makes sense and not sounding
I get
ridiculous. But I mean, if people were able to, know that if I go into here, even the shopping mall, if I go in here, if there's somebody that I can, talk to because I'm having a hard time, I think that would be great. Now, is that practical? I don't know, but I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're really talking about how do you integrate treatment into more areas of our lives.
Right.
And, I think there's something to be said for, I think we're starting to see it more in healthcare where primary care offices are starting to integrate where they have, mental health professionals within their primary care or within the pediatrician's office. For instance, where I take my kids to the pediatrician, that group practice has integrated some mental health providers right into their practice.
Which is great.
Yeah. And I think that, you're really looking at how do we integrate it so that, one, we're providing more help for people that might not know where to go for help, might be afraid to ask for help, but if it's right there in front of them, they will utilize it.
Right.
And then also having people in certain areas that can help de-escalate or may understand or have a different perspective on what might be going on with the person and just has the skills to manage the situation. So much of it is about just having the knowledge and the skills to manage those situations. And a lot of people just don't have that. And so the more we can sort of cross-train people in understanding these situations, and also understanding that most people with mental health issues don't want to be violent or aggressive. That's not that's not generally in their nature.
Right. You're absolutely right.
And I think that sometimes gets lost in the whole situation. Oh, here comes my dog into our meeting. So just one thought I had, because I know you've worked so long, like I said, in the trenches of mental health. And I was wondering, like, what gives you hope, in all the stuff you see, all the stuff you do, obviously there's a lot of downsides, lack of resources, stereotypes, whatever the case is. What gives you hope? What gets you up every day and brings you out there to meet with people and work with people?
Well, honestly, I know this might sound cheesy, but mental health is my passion. So that's what gets me up every day. When I know that if I can at least help one person, or that makes my day. Our days aren't the same, obviously. We could have very good days, and then we could have a good morning, and then within 10 minutes, it could be terrible.
Yeah.
But also what gives me hope is the people that I work with. I do have to say that I am not where I'm at now because of me. I've had a lot of great leaders. I have to say that. I've had a lot of great supervisors who I love very much, who have always had my back and always have helped me. I could go to them and what can we do? And they guided me everywhere I've been. I've had, good supervisors. So that's how I learned.
Yeah.
And so every day when I get up, I just know, because I have a lot of success stories, so that gives me hope. And then when I see people that I've worked with go out and talk to the community and talk to schools and talk to different organizations, that's exactly what gives me hope. That's is great. That, they're going to go out there and do great things. So, that's
nice to know you have a lot of success stories. And I think that unfortunately, in the world we live in, you don't hear a lot of the success stories. We tend to hear what's going wrong,
right?
What's going right.
Right.
And so it's nice to know that your experience is what it is. And it's also nice to know that you've had good mentoring in leadership.
Absolutely.
That is so key. That is so key.
It is.
If we're going to continue to do good things and progress, especially in the mental health field,
yes,
there needs to be good, healthy leadership that is helping to mentor the young people coming into this field who need direction.
But I'm going to tell you, Margie, one more thing that I think is important is that it starts with kids. It very much so starts with kids. People don't develop mental illness as an adult because there's been a lot of teen suicides, young adult suicides. And it's because either they felt like they couldn't talk to somebody or because, people are going to think that I'm weird, but it really does start with, those counselors and even in the preschools, the daycares, the preschools, elementary, middle school, high school, college, all those counselors. It's important because these kids are so influenced. There's a lot of bullying going on because some people don't like the way that somebody else looks. They're unfortunately, this world today is hard to raise children. But again, that's a totally different topic. But that's where it starts, is it really starts with listening to these children, and when somebody says, I'm being bullied or this person has done this, then you need to get on it and investigate it. Because if you just, pass it along, what are you going to do when, I'm sorry to be so graphic, when that person is no longer with us because they felt like the one person or the two people that they wanted to talk to wouldn't listen to them.
Right.
So that's where it starts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what, one of the things that comes out of this discussion is sort of the whole concept of listening. Like, you need to listen.
Absolutely.
We all need to listen a little better and a little harder. And And I think that if we all start listening more, that will be one step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So, well, I appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom and your experiences. I think it's really helpful to hear this and to know that there's people like yourself out there doing this amazing work that you're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who are passionate. I mean, it's just not, I wish it was all me, but it's not, you know, I mean, there's a lot, I have come across a lot of amazing people who really love mental health, and that helps as well. I mean, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Yes.
And thank you to everybody who's listening or watching. I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next time.
All right, everyone have a great day.